And we're live. Welcome to the 9th edition of Open Source Block Explorers, the last one in single digits. Pretty exciting. We have with us some amazing guests, and as we do every week, and in case this is your first time watching, I just want you guys to understand that Etherscan is awesome, and we all love it, but we need diversity in this ecosystem, and that's why we're here. And Andrew from POA Network is especially awesome on bringing some diversity. I hear it's coming soon. So let's just start with intros. Andrew, you first.
Sure, I'm Andrew Provino from POA Network. I'm the project manager on our open source block explorer. On this call, I'm going to provide some updates on what we've been up to, and that's basically it.
How about Ankit?
Hello everyone, my name is Ankit and I'm co-founder of Analyse Ether, and our objective is to make analysis of Ethereum as easy as possible. So just by opening a web browser, writing your own query and making very simple visualizations. And I am here to listen into the call and maybe ask a few questions for today.
Thanks. You have an awesome mustache. Emil.
Emil? Or Dylan?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, guys.
So just a quick intro, like who you work for, what you're doing. And...
Okay. Hi, I'm Emil. Other shot. I'm with Web3Scan. I've been active in the Telegram channel for a while now. I joined basically at episode 3, I believe. Well, there's lots of interesting stuff going on. We aim to provide data aggregation and data integration services such as event monitoring and messaging. And a block explorer is a stepping stone for that.
Cool.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, Mitch.
My name is Mitch. I'm with the ETH Prize Initiative. Today I'm at Consensus and kind of a global thing, so there might be a little bit noisier than usual. But I'm very much about open source initiatives to improve the entire ecosystem.
Nice. And Dylan. Oh, I muted you though, Dylan, so you have to unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. Hello, I'm Dylan. I'm starting a community-driven project to build an open source block explorer for Dfinity. I don't work for Dfinity. I'm just doing it as part of the community. And I could talk a little bit more about that later, maybe.
Awesome. Yeah. And okay, cool. Well, then let's move on to the agenda. Oh, Dave's not here yet. So then we will go straight to Emil. I'm so excited to have you on, dude. You've been so fun to listen to in the channel and really active. Can you go through Web3Scan and tell us more about it? And I muted you. So.
Now, okay, so I'm not doing Hangouts often, so I need to get a hang of this. Yeah, as I said, we've been active in the channel, and I really love the discussions going on there. And it's really bi-directional. We get a lot of new directions and new ideas from the channel, and I hope I contribute as much as I get from the channel. So this week we actually launched a first rough version of our Explorer. It's a multi-chain block explorer, which basically means that it's not a single piece of software that scans and visualizes what's happening on one single chain, but actually goes one abstraction layer higher and tries to, make visualization searches across chains possible. So currently we have a support for 4 networks. We have mainnet, Ethereum mainnet, we have the Kovan test network, the POA network, and the Tobalaba network, which is the Energy Web Foundation testnet. Basically, we have built a harvester. We gather all the data from the archive trace nodes by parity, and we put it in the large database, and we enrich and aggregate the hell out of it. So it is a 4 to 5 terabyte database, and it's growing, and every new aggregation adds to that. So we are all into decentralization and running it directly from the node, but building this large database is a very good way, in our opinion, to have a very broad scope. You can research lots of angles very easily, because we can easily run lots of queries on the database, and that does not stand in the way of us moving some of the components of our stack to a more decentralized or way of developing, of building it once it matures. So we are very pragmatic in the meantime. So our rough first version of the Explorer is live at explorer.web3scan.net. I believe it will be in the comments of this call later. And blocks are not yet updating, so it has an image of about 1,000 to 2,000 recent blocks that were updated this morning in the Netherlands, where we're based. It gives you an idea by clicking around. What we especially put some effort in is the blocks and the transaction overviews with the nice icons and the block detail page. So I encourage everyone to check that out. And we got our first graphs yesterday online, which already shows some of the images of the aggregate statistics for the POA network, the Tobalaba network, and Kovan, which are not necessarily already available through other means.
Those graphs, are you ready to share your screen and kind of show those? Because that might help inform the discussion.
So let me check if this works. Yeah. Hi. All right. So basically, this is the landing page. There are 4 networks. Each have a different color. So we use color codes for the different networks. I'll go to the main net, analysis charts, and the pop-up basically says that this is experimental software, and you shouldn't trust it that much yet. So this is a nice graph, which is the cumulative transactions by day. That is not a new image, I believe, because, well, I think Etherscan and Etherchain have them, but by switching to the Kovan network, so everything is deep linked. You see different color codes. So this is Kovan network. There are 10, just short of 9 million transactions on the entire network. And if I switch to the POA network, which should be interesting for others in our group, there are about 4 million transactions in total on the entire chain. So, and lots of activity in February. Don't know what happened there, but that's what we try to make visible. So let me go back to the call. And well, this should give you a indication of where we are going with this.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Do you guys have questions? Anyone in the panel? We had 2 new people come in, and just so you know, like if you have something to add to the agenda, put it in the document that you got. But any questions for Emil?
Just a standard project question is, what would your goals are for the future direction in the near term, like in a month or 2 months' time? Great work, by the way. Looks quite excellent.
Thanks. So basically, this is one of these stepping stone projects. The launch of the Explorer will be maturing that the remainder of the year, and we will start working on the Bridge Explorer. So a simple example of something that's happening between two blockchains. And I think that's interesting to visualize that. And I think it's a design challenge at the same time. How do you deal with these things that move away from one chain and move over to a different chain? And well, what happens in all the edge cases in case of rollbacks? So that is new ground, I guess. So I think that's interesting from a research perspective. And we are working, that's where I get to the other part, which is in the agenda, to the contract sources. I've already been quite vocal on that in the Telegram channel. That, well, I think it would be good that it would be better if there were multiple sources of contract sources and the ABIs for the contracts. And well, there are all sorts of reasons which we got into in the Telegram channel why there won't be a decentralized repository for that just yet. Apparently it's pretty complicated, but that doesn't mean we can't have multiple data aggregators hosting these sort of repositories with the APIs and the contract sources, and having multiple mechanisms which are independent for verifying and recompiling and checking the compiled sources against the bytecode. So we are working on that, and we're building a tool basically to get all the sources that we can get, which is about 100,000 for Covan network, mainnet, and Robston network, and compile these against well, all known Solidity compilers. So this will be a learning experience for us to see where it gets us, and lots of input will be needed from the Telegram channel, no doubt. Well, and that's it. And we hope to get some time on stage at maybe the Web3 Summit or DEF CON even. So working on that.
Do you have a place where you hang out and chat? Like, do you have a community? Are you looking for anything like for help? Are you looking for open source contributors? Anything on that front?
Well, not necessarily. It's me and Dave, not Dave Appleton, but Dave Hogendoorn. He's my business partner, and we're basically building this together. And so it's, I know there's all sorts of places and all sorts of help around here, and the Telegram channel is really a good place for me to be. That's what I learned over the past few weeks. So whenever there is something, I will shout out there.
Okay, cool. Anyone else have any? Oh, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, just one note for the Telegram channel. Please message Griff or me. I'm at MITCH_KOSOWSKI on Twitter and Telegram if you'd like to join that. It's just a really wonderful community that Griff and his team have been kind of building up, and there's a lot of good pollination across projects. It's been really, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been...
Emil, do you have a date when you'll be open sourcing it?
It will be later this year. We have a very rough and sketchy release, and basically because of that, I don't want to open source it. There needs to be some review on it. So we are not necessarily open sourcing our whole stack, but we are open sourcing the API, which gathers the data from our database, and we are open sourcing the front-end GUI, which is all the JavaScript stuff and all the stuff that visualizes the data. So these are separate components. We have a harvester and scanner on the back end, and well, lots of expensive hardware to do the service management. It's a lot more complicated to open source it because you can't really do anything with the software if you don't have the hardware and the service management skills at the same time. So there will be more info on that once we well, get it nice and tidy. That's it basically.
Cool. Well, I think that's pretty good. I think next on our agenda is actually updates for POA Explorer by Andrew.
Sure. Okay. So we've had a lot go on the last couple of weeks. First thing, we are working on a new design, which encompasses like a more user-friendly flow. The idea behind this is to provide an experience where a user can easily identify transactions from contract calls and token transfers at just a simple glance. We've completed our contract verification in all Solidity versions, as well as the read functionality for all verified smart contracts. Let's see. We are starting a wrapper which will contain multiple languages of the contract verification and functionality, such as Solidity, Viper, and WebAssembly. And then for our indexer, we've improved on the original design. So we now have two indexers. The first is a Genesis indexer, which works backwards from the chain tip to the Genesis block. And then the second indexer is our real-time indexer, which indexes new blocks as they're collated. And again, the idea behind this is to provide a better user experience. If someone decides to deploy our Explorer, within a few minutes, they have thousands of blocks in the history, while also receiving the new incoming blocks. So it just provides a better user experience. We've also completed partial support for Geth. In the future, we'll provide support for the Geth debug trace transaction, which is the internal transactions. We just put it on hold because we have more important things looking at right now. Finally, we also brought a new team member on to specifically work on our API. We have a few endpoints done in the last couple of weeks, but we'll have more in the upcoming weeks as well. So that's basically the updates for the last couple of weeks. Any questions?
Amazing stuff. It sounds like you might have been reading from a document. If you could just zip that over, and then I can query with the stakeholders as well. But yeah, just you guys have been really rocking and rolling. Very, very impressive stuff.
Yeah, I write it down because it's hard to keep track of from week to week. And those are just the big updates. We've probably closed 40 or 50 issues in the last 2 weeks, two and a half, 3 weeks. But those are just the big ones that I included here.
Excellent.
Yeah. Your GitHub is just active as hell, man. Like it's always moving and shaking. It's really impressive thing to see.
Yeah, it's like 24 hours a day too.
Yeah, it really is. Does anyone have any questions for POA Explorer? We got a nice panel here.
Definitely.
Yeah, what I like is that we're walking the same path. So all the things you're saying, these are things you basically come across when you start building this thing. So I feel for you what you guys are doing, because some of that stuff is quite challenging. And this backwards harvester is one of these things that you can actually start using the Block Explorer straight away without waiting for the whole thing to get to the chain tip, which will take forever with the mainnet, and even with the other test nets. It's already quite challenging to crunch through all the data.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I feel like we're both, it's building like the small building blocks of the initial Explorer. And then once that's completed is when you can really expand on multiple aspects to basically take us better, make our Explorers better than, let's say, Etherscan or Etherchain or something like that. Even though we all love Etherscan, but it's just getting these building blocks in place.
Yeah.
It's cool. Well, a point of process that I'd just like to mention is that POA Network is going after the first $250,000 ETH prize bounty. They're moving very, very quickly, and so I hope to have the correct structure for the bounty to be played out. Then I'm working hard with the stakeholders to do that. Very proud to announce that Griff, maybe if we could talk about a little bit something that we've been working on, as well as another thing is that I've talked with the Gitcoin team, and they very generously offered to do a 5K bug bounty program once the POA network it goes live. So that's an announcement that's live for this group. The idea behind that bug bounty program would be that and we're still working out the details, if you find some bugs on the project, that's worth an X amount. If you find and deliver, it's probably like an X plus Y. And if you just kind of close the issue yourself, that'll be worth something as well. So the idea will be to get the community kind of eyes on that repo, and yeah, very much looking forward to that as well. But Griff?
Yeah, I'm pretty cool. Actually, right after this, we're going to put some of the bounty on. Mitch, I mean, you know more of the details than I do. All I know is the Giveth side. But I think it was February or March, there was a conference in Canada where we actually presented on stage and won a contest as the best presentation or something like that. But we actually created an open source block explorer now, decentralized altruistic community. And I'm really excited to kick it off with a bang with ETH Prize's bounty for POA Network. It's going to end up on the Giveth platform, and it's probably the biggest thing that will be on the Giveth platform for a while. I hope. A little scary to have that much Ether floating around in our contracts, but you know, still excited to make it happen. Mitch, maybe you can give the details on exactly what you plan on doing.
Yeah. Well, we'll make some sausage, and then we'll come back more on that. But yeah, so very excited to announce the initial agreement, and yeah, very much looking forward to that.
Thank you to both of you. Really appreciate the help. You guys have been lifesavers. The Telegram community, everyone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, man. You guys are doing all the magic. But we do have more on the agenda. So I have Dave. Dave Appleton came around, and he has a few comments about block reorgs with respect to filters, and love to hear your input on that, Dave.
It was actually more of a question because in the past few days, people have been asking questions about, you know, how do we detect this? If we're just using the simple Geth or parity filtering, how do we detect we've had a block reorg, and how do we handle that? And what I was asking for here is if we could get the questions in the group. I think we got a few people who are going to be in Berlin, either tomorrow for the Magicians or over DatCon. We may have a few people we can ask about it. Yeah. There was one other thing as well, which I hadn't put on the agenda, which is we've got a couple of people here who are now recompiling all the contracts. And in the last week, I was pointed to, what was it, 4 bytes? Yeah, the 4 byte code thing, which is fantastic. I've just incorporated that into a disassembler that I'm messing with. I've realized it's not complete. So if you guys in recompiling loads of contracts can actually keep all the distinct hash codes, maybe we can build a more thorough directory. That was about it.
Well, that's cool. I guess I didn't fully understand the block reorg question though. Can you?
Okay. So the thing is, I noticed in the past couple of weeks that when I'm monitoring blocks coming in, occasionally you get the same block number coming in twice, and then somebody else commented that even happens if you're running a filter. So not just filtering new blocks, but even if you're filtering for transaction, so you're looking for transfer functions on contracts. Once in a blue moon, you you actually get repeat data, because it was in one fork, and then you were following one fork, and then that fork didn't win, so it comes in again. So so really the question is, what do you do in that case? Is there a way to mitigate against it? So if there are any questions relating to that, I think the trick is, if we can throw them all together, I can try and make sure that they get asked to the right people.
I think it's a very good point. Yeah, I've got some that I'll add to the chat as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and well, I already wrote on the Telegram channel quite extensively on this topic. It's risky to actually harvest data at the chain tip, because you never know if it will be canonical or part of the longest chain, and that's what uncles eventually become. Basically, yeah. I think you should have a safety margin of 50 blocks. Something like that. That's pretty wild, but that will do most of the time. And if you are going to go nearer to harvesting at the chain tip, then basically you need to take into account that your chain will roll back, and you will get other blocks with different transactions and different uncles and different logs and different events. So I wrote extensively on that, how we deal with it on the in our harvester, and that works pretty effectively. Etherscan has a section on the block reorganizations, which is the forked block section. It shows which blocks they reverted. So I think there are many people in this channel that have had to deal with this and can help you out with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting number. It's the number 50, and I think that's just a heuristic. But I've also seen the number 6 being pulled out. But I wonder, like, is there any hard numbers run about?
50 is the number I'm saying because most of the exchanges kind of assume finality after 50 blocks, which is 12.5 minutes or something like that. And then after making a deposit at an exchange, you are allowed to withdraw or trade it after a certain amount of blocks. So that is an assumed finality. It is not a guaranteed finality. I don't think there is a guaranteed finality. So it would be interesting to see what would happen if a rollback of more than 50 blocks ever happened. As far as you can see on the canonical blockchain of mainnet, that never happened, of course. And you only get a reward for your uncle for 8 blocks after, something like that. It decreases the amount.
So I know 6 blocks is for Bitcoin. That's considered pretty much like never going to happen.
Yes, but that's 60 minutes, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Is there any other comments on this, or should we move to the next agenda topic?
I just have one other question, Emil, about your data querying. At what point do you think that you're going to be able to allow other people to work with you on queries?
Well, basically, it's very hard and costly to disclose or have a public hosting for your 6 terabyte database. So we are in all sorts. There are all sorts of creative challenges with that. I think we will eventually go to some sort of publish, subscribe type of system that you can actually query our backend database. But that won't be very soon. I think we would be willing to share parts of our database if there are very specific questions. One example of this is a bit of research I'm doing with Thomas J. Rush, looking at all the traces we've crunched through, which took about 2 months back then, just to crunch through the data. And well, we are comparing the data, and he got the data set, and that's promising. So if you have a very particular questions, I'm more than willing to share the data, of course. It's good to get more eyes on the data, and it helps us validate the data set as well.
Dave, just a comment. We enable anyone to do a query on our data set, and our MVP is live, so you can just check it out. So you can write SQL queries on the data set and do your own visualizations or download the data.
Anki, where is the live site?
It's mvp.analyseether.com. I think there's a link in the YouTube description as well. But to actually access the MVP, I think you need to fill up a Google Docs form, and then we'll give you the access to the MVP.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, the person I'm really thinking about most of all would be Harry Denley, for and basically the whole of the scam, the anti-scam team, for trying to trace funds as quickly as possible. Because he's always analyzing stuff going through to the Russian servers and stuff like that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I can definitely make sure Emil and Harry are connected if there's any kind of work that can happen there. It's a good idea.
Excellent.
Well, I want to move on though, and I'm really excited to hear from Dylan, who infamously I was calling Dave for one of the videos, and so I'm pretty excited.
So many Daves here. Anyway, there's not room for another Dave.
No, Dave Albertson's holding it down. But yeah, Dylan, tell us about the Dfinity Explorer.
Yeah, so the project is called Dfinity Explorer. I also wrote down what I'm going to say just as a disclaimer here. I didn't want to forget anything. So the project is really early right now, but I just wanted to come on here and kind of introduce myself to you guys. I created a simple proof of concept website that's up right now at dfinityexplorer.org, just using simulated data. The code for that is on GitHub. There's a link in the Google Doc. We have a Telegram group for the project. It's like 20-something members right now. And a GitHub organization. We have like 6 people in there. Right now, we're just in the early planning stages, discussing like what tech stack we're going to use. We're planning to use React for the front end and GraphQL as the query language, but we really haven't decided what to do with the back end yet. So I haven't built a block explorer before. I'm new to this. When I started the project, it was really hard to find any resources online, like telling you how to build a block explorer. All I really found were some GitHub open source projects, and that's kind of a hard way to learn from, especially if you're not familiar with a programming language or something that they're using. It was awesome to find this group with help from Emil. Thank you very much. And Arthur Falls connected me with him. And I actually haven't even gotten through all the past videos yet of this group, because I like taking notes as I go, as I watch them, and they'll sometimes send me off to do some research on something if there's something I want to learn more about. But I've already learned a lot. It's been great to see everything you guys are working on and the different approaches people are taking to solve these problems. And so with our project, the Dfinity public testnet is not even live yet. There are no development tools, so there's really nothing much that that we can do with my project other than just build this kind of generic front end or something like that. The dev tools in the public testnet are probably going to be available in the next month or two, hopefully, and then the project can really start rolling. Our goal is to have an MVP of the Block Explorer ready for the mainnet launch, which is happening at the end of this year or early next year. It'll probably be like a similar level of functionality to like something like Etherchain Lite to start with, and then like adding functionality from there as time goes on. But I really look forward to participating more in the group and continuing to learn from what all you guys are doing. I'm totally open to collaboration if there are any open source kind of pieces that are like blockchain agnostic that we can work on too. And yeah, I'm really glad to be here.
Cool.
Oh, sorry.
Quick question about Dfinity. Is it EVM compatible, or how does that exactly work?
No, it's like, well, I mean, they're going to support Solidity. So maybe in a way that's EVM compatible. The details of that haven't really been released yet. It's like a WebAssembly VM. So yeah, looking forward to hearing more about how that's all going to work. But yeah, I don't know that you're just going to be able to take an Ethereum smart contract and like, there'll probably be something involved with porting that over.
Our team's building out right now a GraphQL API for our mobile app.
Oh, cool.
So there'll probably be a lot of endpoints that you guys can just take from our project that'll probably port right over. So yeah, just in the Telegram group, yeah, just reach out and be happy to bring you along and tell you what we're thinking and what we're doing with our project.
Okay, super cool. Thanks, Andrew.
Yep.
I'm interested in Dylan. So like, when you're getting geared up in this project, if you have like one or two insights that maybe weren't obvious when you were getting started, it's like, oh, and it's kind of interesting if any pop to mind at the moment.
Well, just like really kind of naive insights, like thinking that maybe, would be using something like JSON RPC to like, grab the data. And like, no, you can't do that. You got to create an index and that kind of thing. So that's one that immediately comes to mind. But you quickly learn that as you start to research this stuff. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
Cool. Well, that was really interesting. It's nice to see another explorer for even a different blockchain coming to the group. It's very cool, man. Thank you so much. Is there any quick topics anyone has before we close this thing out? Did we lose James? James just walked away at the wrong moment. James is from the Ethereum Foundation. I would love for him to come back and talk about grants. Well, actually, maybe you could talk about it, Mitch.
Griff, I think that was James Young from SpankChain. It was a different James, right?
Oh, different James.
Or maybe they've. There's a lot of James. There's a lot of Davids coming around.
Yeah,
sure. I'm happy to talk. Yeah. I'm happy to talk. To be clear, I'm not a member of the Ethereum Foundation, although ETHPrize is basically one of the sponsors of the is the Ethereum Foundation. But yeah, we're very much in communication with them, and yet I think they're currently doing their next round of bounties. We're in close communication with them. Very interested in the open source block explorer. So, like I mentioned before, POA network is a current bounty. We're exploring some possibilities in the open source block explorer space, as well as design is very much a big consideration for the next ETHPrize initiatives, as well as educational resources, which is a lot of onboarding stuff. So hope to have some good news in the coming weeks with that coming up soon. But James Young of SpankChain, maybe get your perspective of just a little bit about some of the things that you guys are working on, because SpankChain is very much on the forefront, I think, on a lot of these things.
First of all, thanks for having me. I'm a dev lead, and we are primarily focused on state channels. And what we rely on is the blockchain to be able to do and wanting to do queries to see from a state channel perspective the deposits that are being made. And we have to do things like rebalancing of channels. So we need to do queries and look at a block explorer that is pretty much like a cache of the blockchain to be able to figure out what our rebalancing strategies are going to be. So we consider like the block explorer like a cache of the blockchain, really to help inform us about how to manage our off-chain state.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah. Are there any other state channel specific explorers out there? I assume Raiden might have something along those lines.
I don't personally know of any, but we are creating our own off-chain block explorer based off of our implementation of state channels. And what we'd like to do is kind of have an interface for developers eventually that kind of blur the lines between what's off and what's on-chain. So it's easier to reason about and have that, kind of abstraction available for devs as we open up our platform.
Cool. So it might, for that block explorer, does it currently have a name where we can kind of follow that? And it might not make sense, but is that open source as well? Can people kind of take a look and take a walk through that code base?
Yeah, so we open sourced an early version of a block explorer. It is called Chainsaw. So it saws the logs and it saw the chain. So I can send a link to it. It's not under the Spank Chain repo from what I recall, but after this call, I'll send a link.
That's very cool. You guys have great names. Yeah, it'd be great if you put the link in the, and anyone else who mentioned any links, make sure they're obvious in the notes, and I'll put them in this video. Are there any other questions for Spank Chain? You guys have great names. That's all I gotta say. And then I think we can close it out. Thank you guys so much for coming. It was a great call again. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.